Welcome back to NBC Update channel. Today we will learn about the devastating collapse of one of Salem's most sacred relationships spawned between Brady Black and Marlene Evans. In a shocking turn of events that has left the entire community reeling, Brady has officially severed his mother-daughter connection with Marlene, delivering a letter so devastating that it has shattered the very foundation of their decades-long relationship. But the letter was only the beginning. Brady has also taken the extraordinary step of legally prohibiting Marlene from having any contact with his daughter Rachel, completely blocking her from intervening in Rachel's treatment case at Bayview. The psychological warfare between mother and son has reached a point of no return, and Salem may never be the same again. The breaking point. The tension between Brady and Marlene had been building for weeks, like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Their arguments became increasingly volatile, with raised voices echoing through the halls of the Kyriakis mansion at all hours. Neighbors reported hearing shouting matches that lasted well into the night, with accusations flying back and forth about boundaries, trust, and the fundamental question of what it means to be family. Brady felt suffocated by what he perceived as Marlena's constant interference in his life and his daughter's treatment. He accused her of overstepping, of using her professional credentials as a psychiatrist to manipulate situations to her advantage. Marlene, on her part, insisted she was only trying to help, that her decades of experience made her uniquely qualified to guide Rachel through her psychological challenges. But the final straw came during a particularly brutal confrontation in the Kyriakis living room. Brady accused Marlene of betraying his trust by discussing Rachel's case with medical professionals behind his back. He claimed she had violated patient confidentiality and parental rights, turning what should have been a private family matter into a public spectacle. Marlene defended herself, arguing that Rachel's well-being was more important than Brady's pride, but her words only fueled his rage. The argument escalated until Brady said something unforgivable words that once spoken could never be taken back. In that moment, he realized he couldn't continue living under the same roof, breathing the same air, pretending that everything would eventually work itself out. The departure. Brady made his decision in the dead of night. He packed his belongings with military precision, moving through the mansion like a ghost, careful not to wake anyone. He took only what he needed: clothes, personal documents, a few photographs that didn't include Marlene. By dawn, he was gone, leaving behind only the faintest traces of his presence and one devastating envelope addressed to Marlene in his distinctive handwriting. The mansion felt different that morning, emptier somehow, as if Brady's departure had drained the life from its walls. When Marlene discovered the envelope on the entryway table, her hands trembled as she lifted it. The weight of it felt ominous, heavier than mere paper should feel. She carried it to the living room, settling into the chair where she and Brady had shared countless conversations over the years. Part of her hope, this was his way of extending an olive branch, a written apology for the harsh words exchanged during their last fight. Perhaps he was asking for time to cool off before they could sit down and work through their differences like rational adults. She had already begun formulating her response in her mind, planning how she would acknowledge her own mistakes and reaffirm her unconditional love for him. But the first line shattered every hopeful thought. Brady's handwriting was steady, deliberate, each word chosen with surgical precision to convey the depth of his pain and anger. He wrote that he could no longer in good conscience call her mom, a title that now felt like a lie given the chasm that had opened between them. He explained that he needed distance, and not just physical space, but emotional separation that would likely stretch on indefinitely. The most devastating part came in the closing lines, where he admitted he still loved her, but would not forgive her for what he perceived as her unforgivable betrayals. The phrase "at least not now" offered the faintest glimmer of hope, but it felt more like salt in an open wound than a genuine promise of reconciliation. Marlena's collapse. The letter slipped from Marlena's fingers and fluttered to the floor as the full weight of Brady's words crashed over her. Her breathing became shallow and rapid as panic set in. This was unlike any professional crisis she had faced in her decades as a psychiatrist. This was personal, primal, a rejection that struck at the very core of her identity as a mother figure. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the couch, her body folding in on itself as sobs racked her frame. Years of professional composure, of maintaining boundaries between her personal and professional lives, crumbled in an instant. Belle arrived moments later, having stopped by for what she thought would be a routine morning visit. Instead, she found her stepmother in complete emotional freefall, the letter crumpled beside her on the floor. Belle quickly pieced together what had happened and immediately moved to comfort Marlene, wrapping her arms around the older woman's shaking shoulders. But even Belle, with her legal training and calm demeanor, was visibly shaken by the contents of Brady's letter. She had witnessed the arguments between her stepmother and brother, had even tried to mediate on several occasions. But she never imagined it would come to this complete severance of their relationship. Marlena's first instinct was to reach out to somehow fix this before it became permanent. With trembling hands, she grabbed her phone and called Brady's number, her fingers fumbling over the screen. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times before going to voicemail. She tried again immediately, and again, each attempt more desperate than the last. By the 5th call, she was leaving rambling messages, her voice thick with tears, begging him to talk to her, to give her a chance to explain, to understand his perspective. But Brady never answered. His silence was more final than any words could have been. He had disappeared completely, leaving no forwarding address, no hint of where he had gone or when if ever planned to return to Salem. The legal bombshell. Just when Marlene thought the situation couldn't get worse, she received a call from her attorney 3 days later. The news delivered over that phone call was like a second earthquake hitting before the first one's aftershocks had settled. Brady hadn't just walked away emotionalite, had taken concrete legal action to ensure Marlene could never again play a role in his daughter's life. He had filed official petitions with the court, hiring expensive lawyers to draft documents that would strip Marlene of any rights or access to Rachel's care. The legal restrictions were comprehensive and brutal in their thoroughness. The first provision explicitly prohibited Marlene from accessing Rachel's medical records at Bayview or any other facility. This was particularly devastating given Marlena's professional background had been consulted on Rachel's case precisely because of her expertise in adolescent psychology. And now she was being treated like a threat rather than a resource. The second provision went even further, barring Marlene from participating in any medical decisions regarding Rachel's treatment, no matter how minor. She couldn't offer opinions, couldn't provide professional consultation, couldn't even be in the room when treatment plans were discussed. But the third provision was the cruelest cut of all. Brady had demanded that Marlene be forbidden from visiting Rachel without his explicit written consent he made clear he had no intention of granting. This effectively ended Marlena's relationship with her granddaughter, cutting off a bond that had been developing for years. Rachel had looked up to Marlene, had confided in her during difficult times, and now that connection was being severed by legal decree. The court documents were clinical and cold, reducing their family dynamics to legal terminology about access rights and professional boundaries. The aftermath. When Marlena's lawyer finished explaining the full scope of Brady's legal actions, there was a long silence on the phone. Marlene sat in her office, the same office where she had counseled hundreds of patients through their darkest moments, and realized she had no idea how to counsel herself through this nightmare. For the first time in her long career, she felt completely powerless. She admitted to her lawyer, her voice barely above a whisper, that she felt like she had lost everything that mattered. Her role as a mother figure to Brady gone. Her ability to help her granddaughter through a critical mental health crisis stripped away. Her sense of purpose and identity shattered. The lawyer tried to discuss options for contesting the restrictions, talking about procedural technicalities and possible appeals, but Marlene wasn't listening. She realized that even if she could fight these legal restrictions and win, the damage to her relationship with Brady was already done. No court order could repair the trust that had been broken, couldn't heal the wounds that had been inflicted through harsh words and harsher actions. She thanked the lawyer for the information and ended the call, then sat alone in the gathering darkness of her office, wondering how a relationship built over decades could disintegrate so completely in a matter of days. The news spread through Salem like wildfire. Friends and family members found themselves taking sides, with some supporting Brady's right to set boundaries and others defending Marlena's intentions as pure even if her methods were flawed. The community that had once looked to Marlene as a pillar of wisdom and stability now whispered about her in coffee shops and at social gatherings. Some questioned whether she had overstepped her professional bounds, while others saw Brady as ungrateful and cruel for abandoning the woman who had raised him. The division created ripples that affected relationships throughout Salem, proving that some family conflicts are too explosive to remain contained within a single household. Part 2. The storm has a name, Joy Wesley, and she may be returning with a secret that will turn their world upside down. A calm morning turns into a looming nightmare. Everything began innocently enough, with Alex and Stephanie settling into a steady rhythm as a couple. Their days were filled with quiet conversations, small joys, and the kind of routine that usually hints at a peaceful future. But beneath Stephanie's calm exterior, there was always a shadow of worrying she never dared to verbalize. That worrying centered on Joy Wesley, the woman who left Salem months earlier under chaotic circumstances and a cloud of suspicion. Stephanie feared that Joy's departure was not the end. She feared that Joy's presence would eventually circle back into their lives like a storm returning to the coastline. And now, those fears may be coming true in a way she never imagined. Joy is rumored to be carrying Alex's child. Chanel Dimra's unexpected intervention. On November 25th, while enjoying a simple walk with Chanel Dimra and baby Trey, Stephanie thought she could momentarily escape her anxieties. The crisp air, the short stroll, and the presence of friends felt refreshing at first. Chanel, always known for speaking her mind, began sharing candid stories of parenting exhaustion. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, and the overwhelming sense of responsibility all poured out of her like a flood. Stephanie listened politely, but each sentence seemed to tighten something deep inside her chest. Her smile faltered. Her hands fidgeted. She avoided eye contact whenever Chanel mentioned the word baby. Still, fate had other plans. Baby Trey started fussing, and in a surprising twist, it was Stephanie who managed to calm him. Her gentle sway, soft voice, and instinctive care left Chanel amused and Alex quietly amazed. Soon enough, Chanel jokingly crowned Stephanie the new baby whisperer, a title that only intensified the subtle tension Alex had already sensed. When the baby suddenly spit up all over her, Stephanie merely laughed it off. But inside, she felt conflicted. Caring for Trey stirred something warm in her, but also something frightening. She liked being helpful, yet she loved even more the relief of giving the baby back when the moment passed. Alex's hint that changed everything. As they walked home, Alex couldn't ignore the shift in Stephanie's demeanor. Her nervousness around the topic of babies didn't escape him. With gentle curiosity, he finally asked the question that had simmered between them for months. "Do you want to have children someday?" Stephanie froze. She wasn't against the idea entirely. She simply wasn't ready. Her career, her personal dreams, her desire for stability, all of it mattered deeply to her. While she imagined one day becoming a mother, it was a distant vision, something far beyond the horizon. Alex, however, clearly had a different timeline in mind. His voice carried hope, expectation, and perhaps a touch of impatience. The discussion ended abruptly when Stephanie avoided the issue, choosing instead to postpone the conversation. But in Salem, postponed conversations rarely stay buried for long, especially when an unexpected twist is on its way. Joy Wesley's web of lies and a secret she can no longer hide. Months earlier, Joy left Salem with a dramatic lie. She claimed she was pregnant with Alex's child, a ploy to keep him close and manipulate their complicated relationship. When her deception was exposed, she vanished from town in disgrace. But rumors began circulating quietly, whispers that this time, unlike before, Joy might truly be pregnant. And not only pregnant, but due any day. When she disappeared in March, no one expected her to stay gone forever. Salem has a way of drawing people back, especially those with unfinished business. Joy's absence created a dangerous vacuum, one filled with possibilities, doubts, and now, a ticking clock. If Joy returns with a baby that undeniably belongs to Alex, everything changes. Stephanie's worst fear, a fear she never dared to voice, becomes a living reality. What happens when Joy returns? Imagine the moment Joy arrives at the Kyriakis doorstep, a newborn in her arms. Alex would be stunned, torn between responsibility and disbelief. Stephanie would feel the ground shift beneath her feet, her plans and hopes collapsing in an instant. A child changes everything. Every relationship, every future plan, every compromise and promise once made. Joy knows this. And, in her own way, she may use this baby as a weapon intentionally or not to dismantle Alex and Stephanie's relationship from the inside. Old feelings may resurface. Hidden resentments may ignite. And Salem could become the battleground for a custody and emotional war neither of them is prepared to fight. The road ahead for Alex and Stephanie. Stephanie's discomfort around babies now gains new meaning. She wasn't simply uneasy about motherhood, she sensed the fault line forming beneath her life. Her instincts told her that something was about to rupture, and Joy's return may be the earthquake that shatters everything. Meanwhile, Alex stands between two worlds, the future he imagines with Stephanie, and the sudden, unavoidable obligation of fatherhood thrust upon him by Joy's possible return. Salem is no stranger to chaos, but this storyline holds the power to change multiple lives at once and reshape relationships for years to come. A truth that cannot be buried. As Joy's due date approaches, the clock is ticking. Secrets like this do not stay hidden for long in Salem. Whether Joy returns triumphant, repentant, or desperate, one thing is certain: her arrival will force Alex and Stephanie to face the truth they've been avoiding. Stephanie's worst fear may have just stepped out of the shadows carrying Alex's child. And when the truth finally comes out, no one in Salem will escape the fallout.